Hello everyone and welcome to Old Timey Comics, where we head back into the past of superhero comics to check out all the good, the bad, and the absolutely ridiculous. All alterations to the panel's text and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we head back to May of 1962 to let out our rage in the Incredible Hulk's first appearance in his own self-titled series. Don't be too startled by the Hulk's initial gray skin tone, he'll switch over to his usual green color in an issue or two. Our very first view in the comic is of the newest weapon being tested by the American military, the mighty Gamma Bomb, or G-Bomb for short. In a nearby bunker, we're introduced to a pair of scientists running the tests, Igor, and the protagonist of our story, Dr. Bruce Banner. General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross bursts in, chewing Banner out for delaying the test for weeks due to safety precautions. Yeah, who needs safety checks? What's the worst that could happen when dealing with a large and highly radioactive payload? The situation is diffused by the General's daughter, Betty Ross, who is tagged along with her father, though I'm not really sure why. I mean, how old is she? Doesn't she have a job? And why would they allow a civilian to be around for a test like this? Igor decides now is the best time to argue with Bruce over refusing to share with him any of the formulas involved with the creation of the Gamma Bomb. So what's Igor even there for? What can he add if he doesn't actually know what's involved with the bomb? Everything grinds to a halt as Bruce observes the test site and sees a teenager driving into the middle of it. Banner tells Igor to halt the test while he drives off to stop the kid, and a couple of ridiculous things happen. First, Banner only tells Igor to stop the test, and apparently nobody else hears that. Or the fact that Bruce could simply have the test shut down from where he's at, and then a military police unit could head out to retrieve the kid. Second, once Banner's gone, Igor decides to just let the test run anyway, even though it doesn't really gain him anything besides a dead teenager and Banner. Not to mention the questioning when the bodies of the vehicle wreckage are found. Bruce finally reaches the kid, who introduces himself as Rick Jones as he sits in the middle of nowhere playing his harmonica. Apparently, the local kids bet Rick that he wouldn't have the guts to sneak onto the testing site. My only question is, how does one sneak an entire car into a bomb testing site on the day of the test, no less? Is there not a fence? And if there is, are the entrance guards asleep on the job? Man, everyone in this comic deserves what's coming to them. Dr. Banner grabs Rick and manages to throw him into a nearby ditch to avoid the blast. Why is there a ditch out there anyway, and wouldn't one of them likely have driven through it on the way to the testing site? And while it would protect from the initial blast, there's no way it would prevent the vast amount of ensuing radiation from affecting him. When Bruce comes to, it turns out that Rick dragged him out of the area for treatment. Bet it was fun explaining what he was doing on the bomb site and responsibility for the doctor's current state. He probably should be arrested, but lucky for Rick, it's all ignored due to his future as a plucky kid sidekick. As the sun sets, Rick and Dr. Banner have been left alone as the Geiger counter that's conveniently nearby starts to register something from the doctor, even if it shouldn't be possible for radioactivity to just spike like that. Once night fully sets in, a change overcomes Bruce as he's transformed into the Incredible Hulk. Though he's not green as you probably know him, and not gray like on the cover, he comes out looking more like a shade of blue. The Hulk immediately goes on a bit of a rampage, tossing Rick aside before smashing his way through the wall and then into an oncoming military jeep. Hulk stomps off as Rick chases after him, deciding he owes Dr. Banner, and by extension the Hulk, a life debt or something. Later, the Hulk has finally achieved a gray color as he hides out from the military. He's apparently done swatting Rick, who continues to follow along behind him. Their destination is Bruce Banner's home, which is currently being ransacked by Igor in an attempt to find Banner's notes on the Gamma Bomb. The Hulk doesn't take kindly to trespassers and proceeds to crush Igor's pistol before chucking him across the room. With Igor dispatched, the notes are finally found taped to the bottom of a beaker. That's a pretty thick bundle of notes, you'd think they'd be pretty noticeable at a cursory glance. The Hulk realizes where he is and suddenly decides Rick needs to be removed so that nobody will know who the Hulk formerly was. Luckily, before Hulk can go through with the deed, the sun comes up, causing him to change back into puny Banner. That's right, as you've probably realized by now, the Hulk's just a combined Werewolf, Jekyll and Hyde story, or at least at the beginning. Once Banner's back to his usual self, the military busts in, claiming to have followed the Hulk there. Certainly took them long enough, considering how long Rick and Bruce had been there and that there were shots fired when confronting Igor. And why is Betty here? It's a military investigation. For safety and confidentiality reasons, she really shouldn't be. The military arrests Igor, as it turns out he's actually been a communist spy the whole time. He sputters out something about the Hulk, and General Ross takes that as enough evidence that clearly the two are in cahoots with each other. Brilliant detective work there, General. The military grunts then share their theories on what exactly the Hulk is, and they're a doozy. Apparently the two most pervasive are that it's a gorilla escaped from the zoo, or a bear escaped from the circus. What's that? Probably neither of those reported? Oh well, good try, boys. As the military leaves, Banner takes a moment to reflect on his situation and brood about becoming the Hulk again that evening. We now move time and place to Igor in his comfy cell. He wants to get a message to his superiors and does so using a sub-miniature transistor shortwave sending set pasted to his thumbnail. Wow, that's a mouthful. And check out my rant in Iron Man's first appearance for why the transistor explanation for why it's so small is a bunch of baloney. Actually, given that this issue came out almost a year before Tales of Suspense number 39, wouldn't that mean the Soviet Union actually beat Tony Stark to his miraculous transistor technology? Huh. Ain't that a fun little plot hole? Once Igor's report is printed, it's to be taken to someone known only as the Gargoyle. However, everyone is so scared of him that nobody wants to be responsible for delivering the message. The military commander that starts with it insists that his superior has to deliver it because it's his duty or something. But if he is in fact the superior, can't he just order the original messenger to deliver it? In Soviet Russia, superior follows orders from you, or something like that. In fact, our current messenger then passes the report on to someone else since he is their superior, but then that messenger just slides them under the door to avoid having to face the Gargoyle in person. So, couldn't any of them have done that? The lack of logic right now is too dang high. We meet the disfigured form of the Gargoyle with a report claiming that the Hulk has power nearly matching his own. Though is that really fair or accurate to compare extreme strength and intelligence against one another? No matter, as the Gargoyle sets off to find the Hulk using the most convoluted travel plan ever, starting with a huge submarine that then fires off a passenger rocket, managing to avoid being shot down by missile defenses. Checking back in with Rick and Dr. Banner, they drive through the countryside as Bruce has decided for some reason that if he's going to turn into the Hulk again, he's going to do it out in the open. Sure enough, as night falls, that's exactly what happens. And now, even though the Hulk didn't even know he was originally Banner when he transformed the first time, he somehow has some of Bruce's memories and decides to pay Betty Ross a visit as the Gargoyle pursues them. In other words, they drove out to the middle of nowhere for the sake of plot convenience. Checking in on Betty herself, she's lost in thought worrying about whether or not Bruce is alright, and also in fear of the Hulk since that's her only reason for existence. You could probably cut down a quarter of the story by removing her entirely without any consequence. Once the Hulk finds Betty, rather than running away, she faints on the spot. Weak female constitution and all that. Before the Hulk can do any more to Betty, the Gargoyle reveals himself. Rick and Hulk attempt to fight him, but they're quickly subdued by the Gargoyle's will-sapping pellet gun. The Gargoyle then gets pellet happy on the road trip back to Russia with some hiking, a bit of hitchhiking, and a canoe ride all the way out to another submarine. At least I assume it's a different one to rationalize this one launching planes instead of rockets like the original trip. Actually, let's be honest, it's just so we have a window to see the Hulk transform back into Dr. Banner during the trip, even if they forgot to take time zones into account. Which brings up a good question of how the Hulk transformation even works, since that'll never be consistent. Is it darkness, a literal passage of time like 12 hours, or in my opinion the most interesting theory, is it simply tied to Bruce's perception of whether it's day or night, making the whole process psychological rather than physiological? After they land, the Gargoyle puts two and two together about Banner's condition and laments that even though he was transformed performing Soviet bomb tests similar to Banner, he's incapable of changing back to normal. Bruce tells him that he thinks he can cure the Gargoyle even though his own situation is hopeless. And thus, we cure radiation mutation with even more radiation. Brilliant. Now cured, the former Gargoyle has an ideological change of heart and gasses his entire headquarters. Meanwhile, he provides Rick and Banner a rocket to escape while all the Soviet agents barge into his office to investigate. He pulls out a detonator and proceeds to blow the entire building to Kingdom Come. Though if he has a remote detonator, why couldn't he just escape with him and blow it up on the way to America? Anyway, that wraps up the issue, so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe to show your support, or check me out on Patreon to truly help the show to grow. Have a character or story you'd like to see covered in an episode? Let me know in the comments. If you want to check out any stories for yourself, you can either purchase them digitally or through a subscription to Marvel Unlimited. And stay tuned for the next episode of Old Timey Comics.